Welcome to my allotment. It's the middle of January and today I'm going to be talking you through what jobs you can be doing on the allotment this month. I have something called a January checklist, so I make sure that I get all the jobs done that need to be done. If you've not already subscribed to my channel, if you could please do so, because you'll get lots of helpful hints and tips all throughout the year from my home garden, my allotment and also my home kitchen. Now, one of the jobs you could be doing, not actually at the allotment but at home, is sorting through all your seeds and planning out what you're going to be doing for the coming years. You can be planning where you're going to be planting everything, and you can also be planning what seeds you're going to be putting in and getting rid of any really old seeds, because I've been doing this business, I've been doing this for quite a while now, and I often get seeds that kind of like hang around in the bottom of the tin, so it's a good time to start sorting through those. So another job you can be doing is forcing your rhubarb on if you want to. Now, I live in Kent, mine does come on quite early, so I often just cover mine with manure to force mine on a little bit quicker. You would only force your rhubarb on if it was well established, so you wouldn't do it if you'd only just planted it, and you would only put manure on it, very fresh manure on it, if it's well established. Now, people force rhubarb by putting a cover on it, and what they often do is they just force part of it on, not all of it. So that's a job you could be doing if you wanted to. Something else you could be doing if you've not already done it is you could be pruning your fruit trees. So that's a job you could be doing at the moment, your pear trees, apple trees, cherry trees, plum trees, that sort of thing. You could also be planting bare root fruit trees at the moment if that's something that you wish to do. So the other jobs you can be doing is you can be pruning your gooseberries and your blackberries and your raspberries and your red currants, that sort of thing. Something I'm going to highlight today is that I've seen that a lot of people are not sure how to prune their raspberries, and they're getting confused with the different types. Now, there are two distinct types. There are autumn fruiting raspberries and there are summer fruiting raspberries, and you prune them in two completely different ways to ensure that you get plenty of fruit. Now, I'm going to show you my summer fruiting variety and how I prune mine. So if we come through, now, the way you prune summer fruiting raspberries is you remove the wood from last year. So the branches which the raspberries came on last year, those are the ones you remove. The new stems you leave. So the new ones that have shut up you leave, and you can tell they look incredibly different. The new shoots of raspberry canes are much darker brown to the old ones. The old ones are really very dead looking. You often see some little bits of, where the fruit was on there, that sort of thing. That's how you tell the difference. Now, what you do is you prune them right to the ground, the dead wood basically, and you leave the good wood. What I would do is, if you've got a summer fruiting cane that has a lot of new growth on it, now I mean a lot, then you can take out the ones that don't look so strong. So this one's perfectly fine, and all I'm going to do is remove the dead wood from this one. That one over there, which is a summer fruiting variety, there are too many canes there, so I will pick out the ones that look the healthiest and leave them there, and I will take out the more straggly ones, because if I don't, I won't get such good raspberries, because I've had it before. You think, oh, lots of canes, that's fantastic. Well, it isn't, because the chances are they'll struggle to get enough water. So that one I will take out a few of the newer canes, so that I'm ensured bigger raspberries. With the autumn fruiting varieties, you do them in a completely different way, and you literally prune right down to the ground. So you will clip right down to the ground every single cane, and they will all grow back at the right time, and you'll get lovely autumn fruiting raspberries. With your blackberries, you prune your blackberries the same way you prune your summer fruiting raspberries. So it's a good time to do them at the same time, because you're doing exactly the same job on them, so you can't get confused. Something else you can be doing is you can be, if I can get out of my fruit cage, it just shows I need to do a little bit of pruning here. If we move down, I need to be feeding my spring cabbage. So I can just pop round to that. So my spring cabbage, and indeed any brassicas you've got up at the allotment, I would still keep them covered, mainly because of the birds. Because it's the birds that will be hungry this year. They're struggling to find food, and if you don't keep your brassicas covered, your brassicas might be their next meal. So personally, I always keep my brassicas covered. So my kale's still covered and my spring cabbage is still covered. So the spring cabbage is a really good time to feed them at the moment, and you want to feed them with a high nitrogen based feed. Now you could do fermented nettles. That's a real natural way of feeding them. You could obviously buy something if you haven't got that. Something I do is I've got my own chickens, so I've got well rotted chicken pellets from my hens. I will be sprinkling that around my spring cabbage to ensure that I get a really good crop. Something else you can be doing is checking the things you've got stored at home. That's really important because some of the things might be going bad and you want to make sure that you take those out or use them first, all depending what stage they're in. Now those kinds of things are, I'm checking my squashes regularly to make sure that they're all okay, turning them over and giving them a good look round. I'm also checking my onions because I still have onions stored at home, so I'm checking that they're all okay and none of those are going bad, and also my garlic as well. I did have one garlic actually the other day when I checked it, and I do check them every week. They'd gone really quite mouldy, so obviously I removed that and had a look over the rest of them. So some other things you can be doing are sourcing your potatoes to start planting in March, and also your onion sets. You could be sourcing those at the moment as well. You could indeed start chitting your potatoes if you were planning on planting them in about 6 weeks time. So there is a video on that if you would like to watch that, if you've never done it before. Something else I'm doing is I'm going around my allotment and I'm digging it over bit by bit. Once I've dug it over, I cover it with weed suppressant, which stops the weeds from growing, because even though there's not lots of weeds growing at the moment, as soon as it starts to warm up, those weeds will really start growing, and you will appreciate having temporarily covered it, because then you won't have to dig all those weeds out again. Something else I'm doing is I'm going around the crops that I've got, and I'm starting to get rid of the ones that aren't really producing anything. So I've got some rows of beetroots there, and I've had a good look through them, and there really aren't that many decent beetroots there that I could actually do anything with. So I'm going to be digging up the whole row, taking out what's any good and eating it, and then just composting the rest. And with my leeks at the moment, because they're not really going to get that much bigger over the next few months, rather than just digging out the largest ones, I'm actually digging out a row at a time, so then I can move my weed suppressant up to, again, the same thing. So it saves me more work in the spring, because if I dig it all randomly, weeds will start to grow really, really quickly as soon as it warms up. In fact, they grow at an enormous rate of knots. It's really good to try and get some of your gardening, some of your digging done over the next few months, because once we hit a spate, we get a really hard dry spell, and then it's virtually impossible to dig the ground. So I will try and give everything a dig that I can dig, which obviously hasn't got something planted in it. Now, I really hope this has inspired you to get gardening in January. If you've got any questions or queries, and let me know what you're doing as well. If there's something you're doing differently to me, or something you're doing that I'm not doing, I always love to hear what everyone's doing. So please do put it in the comments, and as usual, we'll do our best to answer.